Good day, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, February 6th, 2022, we are continuing our focus of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. We are continuing to see the Tigrayan Defense Forces continue its security operation in the Afar region. What we are seeing right now is that many of the Afar regional militia units that were positioned from Berhale down to Abala have now either been destroyed and or severely disrupted by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. And it would appear that we are, as we speak, really seeing the collapse of the Afar regional military forces. And we're not seeing so much again of the Abiy loyalist formations coming to the assistance of the Afar region. Right now, they are again dealing with a very, very heavy insurgency inside of the Oromia region, and it is not going well for the Abiy loyalists in those areas, and we'll talk about that again very, very shortly. But right now, the Tigrayan Defense Forces are making very, very impressive advances. And what they're seeing on the ground inside of the Afar region is that many of these Afar regional militia forces are now fleeing en masse away from the Tigrayan Defense Forces again after sustaining huge amounts of casualties, especially within the vicinity of Berhale and Abala. And there's been talk of a possible continued advance by the Tigrayan Defense Forces towards the border with Eritrea. And I've talked about that issue in separate videos. I do not believe that would be a prudent move by the TDF to extend itself towards the border of Eritrea. Again, very difficult to supply the kind of forces that would be needed if, in fact, they were looking to cross the border or even move all the way to Samara and look to possibly sever the Djibouti road into the former state of Ethiopia. So again, as the Tigrayan Defense Forces penetrate deeper into the Afar region, it would become more and more difficult to sustain those forces. So, why are we seeing the success or more success of the latest operation by the Tigrayan Defense Forces now as opposed to earlier when we were looking at multi front wars or conflicts where the TDF had penetrated deeply into the Amhara region and at the same time started operations against the Afar region and some of the same issues that were going on previously with some of these Afar regional militias and even ENDF units at the time that were deployed in the Afar region. Well, the short answer is that most of the combat power of the Tigray Defense Forces was being projected in the Amhara region. And again, if we recall, very, very large amounts of territory were seized by the TDF to include Sokoto, Lalibela, Weldia, Kobo, Mersa, Wachale, Dese, Kombolcha, Kamise, Shia Robot, and all the way down to Debris Center. So some of the most elite and professional combat units of the TDF were actually deployed in the Amhara region. And many of those forces have since been withdrawn back to the Tigray region. And with this recent operation, we are seeing obviously different leadership being instituted in this newest security operation in the Afar region. And we're also seeing different combat units as well. So some of these combat units are fairly experienced and actually have the Tigray Special Forces operating with them as well. This is not a huge force that is going into the Afar region, but is probably a more better trained and better equipped force that is no longer being seen as more or less as a sideshow, as the main body of the Tigrayan Defense Forces were allocated towards the Amhara region. So with the pullout of those forces from the Amhara region, the TDF is able to really focus on its operations along the border with the Afar region. Now, at the same time, we continue to see the TDF deploying out west towards the western Tigray region with the possible intent of eventually reconquering the western Tigray region and evicting those forces of both the Eritrean army, some elements of the ENDF, and obviously huge amounts of Amhara regional militia units, including Fano, is deployed in western Tigray. But again, right now we continue to hear reports that a lot of these regional militia units of the Afar regional militias are now fleeing to the east and southeast from the advancing Tigrayan defense forces in this latest operation. And again, quite a bit different operation now, as opposed to when the TDF was also deployed in the Amhara region as well. Now, with that being said, a lot of the Afars are under the very very concern that they are not being fortified with elements of the ENDF. And the reason for that is the ENDF really has its hands full in the Oromia region. And I'm just going to go back down here to the Oromia region. So over the course of the last week, we have seen really stunning setbacks for the ENDF or the B loyalist formations and the federal police forces, the federal regional police forces that tend to operate in the Oromia region. So all these areas where you see yellow is currently under the control of the Oromo Liberation Army, and we've received now multiple reports over the course of the last week, 2 weeks, of quite literally dozens of ambushes that have taken place. One ambush in particular in western Oromia was a force of around 60 ENDF federal police unit that was ambushed and utterly destroyed. The entire unit was completely destroyed, and that was just under a company-sized unit that was ambushed and annihilated by the OLA. And then compounding that, there have been a series of many other ambushes and attacks as well around the Oromia region. In one instance, senior leadership of the Prosperity Party was attempting a visit in the Oromia region, actually being escorted by units of the Republican Guard. And again, we talked about how we're starting to see the increase in Republican Guard units in the former state of Ethiopia to kind of maintain that grip on power for Abiy Ahmed and his close loyalists. And this force operating in the Oromia region was actually being escorted by units of the Republican Guard, and that unit, in fact, was attacked itself as well, and suffered casualties from the reports that we were receiving. But again, very, very tenuous situation right now in the Oromia region. It's not being talked about in the mainstream media. You would normally hear if there was an attack, say, in Niger or Mali by say Islamic separatists or something like that. You would usually hear about that report and the loss of governmental forces or loyalist forces that are close to and supporting the Abiy regime. But because of the closed media environment, again, we're really starting to see activity, the types of activity that you would normally see in Eritrea now being utilized inside of the former state of Ethiopia as Abiy Ahmed continues to try to get a stranglehold on power and extend his leadership in the area of decades. But again, right now, the fighting is vicious, and that is one of the reasons why, again, we are not seeing the deployment of ENDF units to the Afar region. Again, the situation in Oromia, especially Western Oromia, is incredibly volatile. And again, the ENDF continues to take really heavy losses as it continues to deploy against the Oromo Liberation Army. And at the same time, we continue to see the OLA strengthen its positions with recruiting efforts and training efforts in the expansion of the Oromo Liberation Army. The OLA right now is actually much bigger presently than what we saw of the OLA about a year ago. So again, because of this decision-making process to enter the Tigray region and get into this brutal civil war that has fractured the Ethiopian society, we are now seeing the OLA expand and grow in a tremendous way right now. And again, many of these areas are currently under the control of the OLA. And we are continuing to see even the use of fixed-wing assets now attacking towns and villages in the Oromia region. A year ago, we never really saw the Abiy loyalist formations, the federal government of the former Ethiopia, utilize its air force in a manner that it is utilizing its air force now against targets in the Oromia region. And again, the simple fact is because of the media blackout, you cannot get this information and is not being reported on, but it is actually occurring and continues. But right now, we're continuing to watch that issue, and we're continuing to watch the continued deployment of the Tigrayan Defense Forces in the Afar region. It would appear that, again, the operation by the TDF is going much better than originally expected in the Afar region, and we're seeing a lot of these Afar regional forces withdraw. And it might be tempting for the Tigray Defense Forces to make a move towards the Eritrean border or to move deeper into the Afar region and suffer and sever vital roadways and infrastructure areas to decrease the ability of the ENDF to supply itself via Djibouti. But again, we don't believe at IMFAM that is the strategy right now, and we do not believe it would be prudent to advance many more miles into the Afar region and just continue its punitive operation locally near the border of the Afar and the Tigray border. And the main efforts and the main focus of the TDF really should be eventually the ultimate liberation of Western Tigray. That's the news for today. We'll have more to come very, very soon. Have a good day, everybody.